It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're finally jumping into the month of October with October 6th, 2006, and we got 4 movies to look at, including a couple of Oscar contenders. We have a horror prequel that nobody was asking for, and a new Dane Cook comedy that nobody was asking for. So we've got movies galore here, so without further ado, let us dive into the movies. And let's begin with our first film, the biggest new release of the weekend, the Best Picture winner of the year, and gotta say, one of the best picture winners of all time, in my personal opinion. Let us take a look at The Departed. If we're being honest, Martin Scorsese should have won an Oscar for Raging Bull and also Goodfellas, but hey, it took him 26 years after Raging Bull and 16 years after Goodfellas, but this is a movie where he finally got the respect he deserved, and rightfully so, because this is an incredible friggin' movie. This film takes place in Boston, where you have an Irish mob boss played by Jack Nicholson who plants a mole played by Matt Damon with the Massachusetts State Police, and the two characters are loosely based on famous gangsters, Whitey Bulger and John Connolly, corrupt FBI agent who grew up with Bulger. Simultaneously, the police assigns an undercover state trooper played by Leonardo DiCaprio to infiltrate his crew, and when both sides realize the situation, the two cops both attempt to discover the other's identity before their covers are blown. And, really, there's not much more to say about this movie that hasn't already been said. I mean, this is a phenomenal movie that was nominated for several Oscars, won several of them, including Best Picture, Best Director for Martin Scorsese, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Film Editing, and Mark Wahlberg was even nominated for Best Supporting Actor, which he's a guy that I think has long deserved an Oscar. I mean, he's done a lot of great stuff that is very much Oscar-worthy, but just never can get that movie overall that can push him over the top. But really, there's not much more I can add to this film that hasn't already been said. This is, without a doubt, the best Martin Scorsese film ever. And trust me, that is saying a whole lot because of what this guy has been able to do over the course of the last 4 decades. Even more than that, 5 decades. But a great cast with star talent all across the board. DiCaprio, Damon, Nicholson, Scorsese himself is in here, Alec Baldwin, Mark Wahlberg, Anthony Anderson. Fantastic set design, a fantastic ending that just keeps you on the edge of your seat. This is this generation's Godfather. I don't know why I believe that, but that's the thought that came into my mind. Not much more to say. The Departed, a masterpiece. Check it out if you haven't seen it already. Now, with all that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, which is a film that is certainly not a masterpiece, more like an asterpiece, if you will. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Beginning. Nobody's going to be okay after this movie. Not the people in the movie, or the people that really were too stupid to not realize how bad of a movie this is and went to see this anyway. But before being sent to Vietnam, these two brothers and their girlfriends take one last road trip, but when they get into an accident, a terrifying experience will take them to a secluded house of horrors with a chainsaw-wielding killer. You know, the most stereotypical horror movie synopsis you've ever heard in your life, and yeah. If you think that's the worst they're going to do with it, no. They get even stupider, and they get even more cliched riddled, and they get even more pathetic in their attempts to appease your eyes. Like, there's the women in this movie, you know, you got the two hotties in here, Jordana Brewster and Diora Baird, and, yeah, there are, of course, scenes where Diora Baird's got to have her big breasts sticking out because, you know, she's a beautiful woman with big boobs. Jordana Brewster's got to wear even skimpier clothes than Jessica Biel did in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. And, yeah, we also got to make it more gorier than ever because that's what people really want to see. You know, Saw is a big success now, not because the traps are so unique and clever and something that could be very interesting to watch. No. They like the blood and gore. At least we think the blood and gore is the ultimate key. So let's go ahead and just take it to the next level. And yeah, this is absolutely stupid. This is one of the worst things ever I have ever seen in my entire life. The only reason this movie was made, and this is no joke, is because New Line Cinema had to keep the rights to this franchise after Dimension Films tried to buy it. And they paid almost $3.5 million more than expected in order to keep the rights to the franchise. Was it worth it? Was it really worth it in the end? Because let me tell you something, this movie tells you, no, it wasn't worth it. But then again, when you look at every other Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie that's come out since the original remake, they've all been pretty terrible. Texas Chainsaw 3D is a complete garbage waste. There was another one with Letterface. So there's one that came in 2000. me see if I can find it here. No, we've had 3 of them. We've had 3 remakes since this movie, and all of them have been terrible. Leatherface was a bad movie. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the 2022 version, was terrible as well. Every single one of these movies have been absolutely awful. They've been so badly put together. They're so horrible. And yeah, it just goes to show you that this thing was dead on arrival. This thing should have stopped at the remake, the 2003 one, because the 2003 one is the only one that actually did something cool with it. It actually had life to it. It actually did something. This movie did not do anything except just make these movies even stupider, even more shameful, even more disrespectful to the original, which is not just a simple movie where, you know, it's not just a simple slasher movie. There was actually a hook to it. There was actually a purpose for it to exist. This is only existing because they need to keep the rights, and because people think the studio thinks everybody here is stupid, that they'll go and see this movie. And yeah, people were not that stupid, even though this was a minor hit. But then again, it was a small budgeted movie. It really didn't make that much of an impact in terms of the budget overall. It was only $16 million, but yeah, other than that, though, this is a garbage movie. This is a complete waste of time. It's a terrible film. Avoid it like the plague. So with all that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, which is a movie you should also avoid, too. And that's Dane Cook, Jessica Simpson, and Dax Shepard starring in the comedy Employee of the Month. Now, keep in mind that around this time, Lionsgate was also putting out movies with Larry the Cable Guy, because they apparently thought Larry the Cable Guy was going to be the next comedy star. But most people forget that, you know, Dane Cook started in Waiting the year before, and I guess they took that as a sign that, hey, Dane Cook's got a future as a movie star, so why don't we go ahead and do that? And yeah, the movies that he made overall were, I'm not going to say they were great, but they were certainly a lot better than Larry the Cable Guy's movies. But then again, saying that Larry the Cable Guy movie is better than anything is like me saying Larry the Cable Guy Health Inspector is the next Naked Gun, and I still regret saying that even to this day. But the film's plot here, you have 2 superstore employees played by Dax Shepard and Dane Cook who compete for the affection of their new co-worker played by Jessica Simpson. And boy, if you thought her performance in The Dukes of Hazzard was wooden and plain, this one takes the cake. At least she was trying to do something in The Dukes of Hazzard, but this, oh my god, everybody in this movie is way too stupid for their own good. And this is a film that is so lazy in the attempts that it's trying to make you laugh and trying to get a storyline going here. And yeah, this is not one of those movies that I saw back in the day and I was like, I thought it was alright. I mean, yeah, this is probably the best overall film where Dane Cook is the lead in it, but even then, it's still not a great movie by any means necessary. And it doesn't help that everybody in here is acting stupid. Like the whole thing, that the reason why Dane Cook even gets the attention of Jessica Simpson as a whole is largely because he gets a star on this board where he's trying to get Employee of the Month. And apparently, that's enough for Jessica Simpson's character to be like, let's go on a date. Like, in what reality does that even exist? What reality is this? Like you get a star on an Employee of the Month board, and all of a sudden it's just like, ooh, I want you to do. I don't even know what the hell I'm trying to go here, but you get the idea. It's just like you expect a star to be the thing that's just like that makes her horny. I mean, that's kind of what I'm trying to say here. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that everybody in this movie is really stupid. Everybody does something just to move the plot along, and unfortunately, like, the ways that everybody is trying to get, you know, the Employee of the Month thing, and it's not even something that is like something that grand or exciting or engaging. Like, if you went above and beyond, like I work in retail, if you go above and beyond on something that, you know, you can't really do anything of, it's like you can't really do anything, but you have to try your best to try to solve the problem in general. Like, you gotta, you know, you've got to, what am I trying to say here? Okay, for example, let's say that a customer wants to buy something and they don't have that specific product. So what we do at my job is that, you know, if we can't find it and they're still looking for something, you know, we try to recommend something similar to it. Like, imagine that, and that's the thing that gets everybody, and the customer calls later with the customer servicing and said, "Oh yeah, you did this, and like it's really is like you really went above and beyond for that." But at the same time, it's just like is that really enough to go to be like employee of the month territory, or get like a gold star? Like that's something that's a common thing that you do at your job. In this movie, the ways that they try to get the employee of the month thing, and it's just like, the big thing is that like Dane Cook's character makes a woman laugh, and that's something where it's just like, okay, that's a star for you. And that's when Jessica Simpson's just like, let's go out on a date. Like that type of stuff, like that's the level of the stupidity it is to get a gold star. Like Dax Shepard has to get rid of his car because it's in the system and they have to sell it, and apparently sacrificing the car is enough to get him a gold star. Just like, yeah, the stupidity levels in this movie are so ridiculous and so poorly put together. It's unbelievable how bad this movie is. I never really figured it out back then, but now that I see it, it's just like, wow, this is absolutely horrible. This is one of the most abysmal things. I won't even go that far. It's not really that bad of a movie. It's like I said, it's not the worst Dane Cook movie where he's the lead. I mean, trust me, when we get to Good Luck Chuck and My Best Friend's Girl, that's when we really hit the shit literally hits the fan. But cue the airplane movie joke there. But my point is that this is not a very good movie. It's a lackluster film. It's a poorly put together film that just doesn't work on any levels, any way, shape, or form. It's a lazy film. It's not funny. Everybody in here acts like an idiot. And yeah, everybody in here is just stock characters. There's nothing about them that makes them funny. There's nothing about them that makes them intriguing. They're just poorly written stock characters. Plain and simple. It's not a good movie. It's not a good film, but compare that to the other movies that Dane Cook is the lead in by Lionsgate. This is probably top of that list, but even then, that's not a list that you want to be on in particular. It's better than the Larry the Cable Guy movie, but like I said, it's not even saying that much, so yeah, that's Employee of the Month for you. So let's go ahead and move on to our last film, which is Little Children. In the film, you have Kate Winslet, who's an unhappy housewife who's having an affair with a married neighbor, played by Patrick Wilson. And you have Jennifer Connelly also in here, and also Jackie Earle Haley among the cast. It was directed by Todd Field, who did In the Bedroom a couple years prior to this. But this is a really mesmerizing film, and it just works because of just how simple it seems. And then it just goes to these extreme levels where the wheels start coming off the car, and you start to realize as the film goes on, yeah, it's just going to get really worse before it gets better. And yeah, it gets worse before it gets any kind of better. And yeah, the performances in here, absolutely fantastic. It was Kate Winslet, Patrick Wilson, Jennifer Connelly doing their greatest stuff here. But the real breakout in this movie is Jackie Earle Haley, who really took off with this movie. Like, he really became one of those great actors for a little bit. Everyone remembers him from when he was a little kid from Bad News Bears, but now 30 years later, he's back in full form, and he's gone on to become one of these great character actors who's done so many movies and so many memorable performances. Like, he really is a great actor, and it definitely shows in this movie why he took off, because, man, he's absolutely fantastic in this movie. This is also based off of a book by Tom Perrotta, who wrote Election a couple years ago by Alexander Payne, the Alexander Payne movie with Reese Witherspoon and Matthew Broderick, and also would later go on to create The Leftovers for HBO, which I've only seen a couple of episodes, not really that impressed by it, but I've heard people really like it. Maybe I gotta watch the entire show, but overall, yeah, this is a really good movie with a lot of great performances all around, a lot of great tension, a lot of great moments where you're just on the edge of your seat thinking, how is this going to end? I mean, what's the end result of this going to be? And yeah, it's a really good movie. It's definitely one of the best movies of the year. Really great film. Can't recommend it enough. Seek it out if you haven't seen it. Little Children. And so, with all that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. Now, the next time we meet, we'll have 4 more movies to look at. I know there's 5, but I know nothing about One Night with the King, so I can't really talk about that one. I've never seen it before, so I can't really delve into that. But we do have Sarah Michelle Gellar in The Grudge 2. Of course, the sequel to The Grudge. Robin Williams in Barry Levinson's comedy, but really it's sold as a comedy, but it's more than that, and not in a good way. Man of the Year. We also have John Cena in one of his early film performances in The Marine. leading performances in the Marine when he was at the WWE, and the second of the two Truman Capote movies that came out within the span of a year. Philip Seymour Hoffman, of course, was in the original that won him the Oscar, and then you have Toby Jones in this one, Infamous, along with Sandra Bullock. So we'll take a look at those 4 movies on the next episode. That'll be coming up tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. Now, with all that said, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode. Also, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notification button, because we post videos here every day, and you get updates on when new videos come out. So definitely hit the notification bell to get updates on when we put new videos out. Now, don't go too far away, because coming up on Time About the Movies Flashback, we're flashing back to October 9th, 1987, with 3 films I have never seen before, so we can get through this one pretty quickly. Man on Fire, not the Denzel Washington, Ridley Scott film, Tony Scott film, excuse me. But no, not that film. But we also have Chuck Berry, Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll, and Dancers. So we'll try to have a show out of it. It's not going to be a long show, so be on the lookout for Time About the Movies Flashback. That'll be coming up right after I post this, so stick around. We will be right back.